actually have a conversation with my brother who came for Thanksgiving for 15 minutes. And I hadn't had a conversation for 15 minutes since before the stroke. After 2 seconds, I can't remember what we were talking about. But I was able to have a longer conversation. Now, it was confusing at the end of the 15 minutes, and it wasn't going longer than that. But still, it was a lot of progress to me. And I told him, I'm going to continue to get better. And they said, just calm down. This is probably the most you're going to ever recover at the end of 6 months. Apparently, that's what the doctors are taught, or that's what the doctors believe. And I was depressed. I was crying. I was, for someone who's able, at the top of their game, and suddenly everything is yanked out from underneath you. And then you have to live this way for years. It's not just days, it's not just weeks or months, it's years. It was devastating, and I was depressed for a while. But then I had a wave of recovery. I don't know really how to explain it. Recovery didn't happen slowly every day, every week, every year. It happened in a wave, and then there was nothing, and then happened in another wave. And the waves were separated by months. So at the end of the 6 months, I really didn't have much more recovery until all of a sudden, a few months later, I don't remember when it was, sometime in the spring, I had a wave. And all of a sudden, I was able to think more clearly. Every time I hit a wave, I thought, I'm back. Until the next wave came and I realized, okay, I'm back now, but where was I then? It's okay because I was still going in the right direction. And what's remarkable is, this is 5.5 years. This is almost 6 years. I'm still having these waves. I still think that I'm recovered pretty much. There's plenty of things that I'm missing that I can't do that I was able to do before, but nobody would ever know.
2 years from now, Jeff, you're going to be smartest guy in the
world. I'll be smarter than I was before, I hope.
Okay. Every executive wrestles with the concept of balance. Some people dismiss it. There is no balance. It's career. I want money. I want to get as high in the organization as I can.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur, I want to get rich, or I want to be famous. You were, certainly within your own field, you were extremely well known. Okay, now, looking back, what's the lesson?
I've actually learned a lot of lessons. Some of the most important lessons are you never know when something bad and devastating can happen to you. So you've got to prepare. Now, what does that mean? You've got to prepare in all the areas of your life. You've got to make sure that with your husband, with your wife, with your father, with your mother, with your children, that you're not angry, you're not fighting, because if something happens, and God forbid, I just lost my father 2 months ago. And I thank God that we loved each other and we told each other that all the time. He would always come in, put his hand on my shoulder, tell me he loved me, give me a big, loud kiss in my ear that I'm surprised that I can actually still hear because I've been doing it for my whole life. But I miss that now. And that you never know when things will happen to you. So you've got to make sure that you don't let petty things get in the way. You stay close with people, and if you have a problem, you settle the problem and you move on. But you don't want something to happen to you when things are still in flux. And you've also got to make sure that you take care of your business. You've got to have money. People don't think that they're going to have this kind of a problem. I didn't think I was going to have this kind of a problem. But you've got to have money put aside, because all of a sudden you could be out of work, out of income for weeks or months or years. You've got to have insurance. You've got to have disability insurance. People don't think.
Try getting that now.
If I tried to get disability insurance now, I couldn't do it. There'd be no way I could do it. There's no way I can get any kind of insurance right now. Maybe maybe soon I'll be able to. I've been looking into it, and they say if I go for 5 or 6 years without another stroke, which God forbid is another problem, you never know when the next one's going to happen. Hopefully, it's not going to happen ever. But strokes happen to people mostly when they're older. It happens to Kirk Douglas. It happens to people who are older. But there's a book. Jill Taylor Bolt, I think her name is. She wrote a book called.
You got your notes there.
Yeah, I got some notes here because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. She's a stroke doctor, and I didn't write the name of the book down. I can't believe I didn't do that.
Google it.
Jill Bolt Taylor, and it's about stroke. And she's a stroke doctor. She worked in Harvard. She studied stroke patients, and she had a stroke, which devastated her memory, and she was out of it for 5 to 7 years. She finally started coming back in, and now she's pretty much back to normal, she says. I know after you have a stroke, there's no such thing as coming back to normal. Normal is gone. Normal is over. Whatever normal was is what it was. What you have left, you have going forward. And you can still have a great life, and you can have a normal life. I'm trying to think of how to transition what I'm doing in my business to the new world, because in my world, in telecom, like I said, the business changes every 5 to 7 years. It's a different world. It's a different business than it was when I had the stroke. That's how quickly, the wireless business changes. So there are opportunities, but up until 6-8 months ago, I wasn't actually able to think clearly enough about how to transition the business. I was able to think clearly in some areas, but not clearly in other areas.
Money went away. Money
stopped. Money stopped.
How does that work?
That wasn't too much fun. What I did was I spoke. I traveled, I gave speeches. I traveled, I visited with companies. I traveled, and every time I visited with a company, there was daily fees. There was fees that came on. So, the income was very high. Everything was very wonderful. And then it stopped because I wasn't able to travel. Now, what I'm still able to do is I'm still able to talk with the media and offer my comments on the changing industry, which I have been following. I'm still able to write reports and doing things. So that's what I'm actually transitioning into now, which is writing reports on the industry, something that I had done for 20 years privately for companies who hired me to do that, but now making them available to the public. But for years, the income stopped. And if I didn't have income before to put it away, I would have been in trouble now. So that's one of the important lessons that I've learned, that I've taught my kids and teach everybody. There's so many different things. You have to think, what if you were taken out of the game today? And you don't get warning. When it happens, it's just on a trip to Hilton Head. It's just walking into a Starbucks and ordering a cheeseburger. It happens. And what you've done before that is all that you have to live on. So what do? You have to think about your business. You're thinking about your finances. You have to think about your family. You have to think about everything that's important in your life. And you've got to make sure that you have the ability to continue. People don't think that this is ever going to happen. And it doesn't happen to most people. But 750 to 800,000 people a year have a stroke. That's almost 1 million people a year having a stroke. That's a lot of people. And then you have to figure strokes don't heal within the first few weeks or the first few months. They take years. So after 5 years, you have almost 5 million people that are still dealing with stroke. And then you've got the family who takes care of the people. My wife, my children, my parents, they took care of me. They were wonderful. They wrapped a cocoon of love around me. In the beginning, I didn't understand anything that was happening. In the beginning, the first few weeks after we came back from Hilton Head, kids in the neighborhood were rambunctious, destroyed some mailboxes, destroyed our mailbox. And my wife walked out, she brought me out, and she said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do about this?" And I looked at it and I said, "I don't know." And I turned around, I guess I walked back in and I watched television. It was not what I would have done in the past, but I didn't know what else to do. So she put me in the car, we went across the street to Home Depot, we looked for mailboxes, she was trying to involve me in the process. I was just there, I was like a 5-year-old. I was just hanging around with Mommy, just walking around. She brought it back, she sat it down, and she said, "All right, would you put it up?" And I sat there, and I looked at it, and I said, "I don't know what to do." And I went back in, I guess I watched television, and I really remember it. I remember the event, but I don't really remember the details. And she sat out there for 2 or 3 hours putting up this darn mailbox. And now I realize I wish I had done that, but
you have an unusual situation